This podcast may contain adult language and themes, or it might not. We're not really sure. We haven't recorded it yet.
I'm Jason.
I'm Diggs.
I make software, music, and podcasts.
I connect people personally and professionally, and I like talking with Jason.
This is the Candy Factory 5x5 podcast.
5 conversations.
5 random topics.
5 minutes each.
When we hear this sound,
we move on to the next topic. Next.
On every episode, we invite a very special guest to join us. That's right. And on this episode of 5x5, our very special guest is Will Willis. Will, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. You tell us a little bit about yourself. Get to know us. I mean, get to know you. Get to know.
No. Tell us about us.
Tell us about.
Well, like you said, my name is Will Willis. That's my real name, not an alias. AKA Hollywood Will.
Nice.
From New Jersey, got the name Hollywood Will. Used to be a club promoter in Hollywood for many years.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
So all A-list events, movie premieres and sports like after parties and things like that. Came back to Pennsylvania because that's where my family is. Had to be closer to my kids. So
got it. I wish the first topic was Will Willis so that we could, so that we could hear the journey of that.
The happy hour story. You need a happy hour for it.
Got it. Well, it's great to have you on the show. Diggs, my friend, always my pleasure to see you. This is the Candy Factory 5x5 podcast. If you're not familiar, the Candy Factory is a co-working and social club located in the heart of downtown Lancaster, Pennsylvania. You can check us out at coworkinginlancaster.com. Come on in and, go to the website, learn about it, schedule a tour, come and visit us, and then sign up. Because it's an awesome place to work with others in a social way, safe way. After these last 14 months of the global COVID-19 pandemic, it's time to get out of the house and come and co-work. It really is time. And I'm grateful that you guys are co-workers of mine and glad to have this place to hang out and socialize with all the great people here at the Candy Factory.
I love it here.
It's great. And Will, you're a new member. So we're really grateful to have you on the show and glad you're part of the community.
Thank you.
If you're new to the program, here's how it works. I have an iPad. His name is Frank. He's sitting right there. Frank's going to dish up 5 random topics. We're going to talk about each topic for 5 minutes each. We'll hear a little jingle and we'll move on to the next topic. And that's pretty much it. It's the fastest 25 minutes in podcasting. You guys feeling good? Feeling loose?
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go. Frank, tell us what is topic number 1 of this episode of the Candy Factory 5x5 podcast. It is craft beer. Craft beer. Will, are you a craft beer drinker?
I'm a beer drinker, so it really doesn't matter.
Craft or no craft, it's just like, just bring it.
Craft, IPAs, light.
Everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Actually, everything except like any citrus.
Okay.
So I don't like beer that tastes fruity. I don't like honey beers.
So like the Blue Moons and all that stuff, that's just not your bag. You're not into that at all.
If I'm already tuned up, I guess, but
right. If it's beer number 4+,
right,
then it's fine, whatever. But
definitely not a starter.
Yeah, you're not going to come out with that. You're not going to come out of the gate with. Diggs, how about you? Fair. What are you into in terms of beer? You're a beer guy.
Probably on the craft train. Was running around the southeast part of the states last week, doing a bit of beer tasting at random breweries. My big thing is the more local I can get, the better.
Okay.
So that tends to be more craft, just because of the nature of local brewing these days. So,
right. Do you have a favorite here in Lancaster?
Oh, I feel like that's I love you all equally. No, that's
well done.
Thank you.
So I don't drink anymore. It's been almost 7 years since I've had a drink, and but I was definitely a beer guy. I drank a lot. I always say that I drank a lifetime's worth of beer in about 20 years. And then I just, I just condensed my beer drinking. It's almost like you have a capacity, you have a finite capacity of the amount of drinking that you can do. And I just decided to just go ahead and run with it. Just go nonstop.
That's pretty awesome.
Till it was time to just be like, okay, I'm out.
Yep.
But I was like, I was right I had like about a 10-year overlap of this craft beer explosion, right? So, when I was a kid coming up through, right, there was Budweiser and Coors, you know what I mean? Like it was just all big brewery. And then, whenever it started, I don't remember when the smaller breweries like that kind of became a thing. What, about 15 years ago, maybe?
What was the first one that kind of popped up that you remember?
Well, I remember drinking like smaller breweries, but not what would be considered craft or microbreweries. Like Saranac was one of the first ones in upstate New York, where I actually knew, you know what I mean? Like where I actually knew more about the brewer, you know what I mean? Than like Budweiser is just Budweiser, it's just big box.
Yeah.
So that would have been the first one that I remember. And then of course, locally Lancaster Brewing, which has been around for a long time. And then I think it was probably about 15 years ago, maybe 17 years ago when I would get into like the seasonal beer or like that. Oh, well, yeah, like there's a flavor or type that would be different from just, give me a Budweiser,
Yes.
And I found it fascinating how it sort of reinvigorated beer, like it became, it's not unlike coffee became, you know what I mean? Like where all of a sudden you go from, all of a sudden from 40 years ago, you go from, Folgers and Maxwell House or Budweiser and Miller Lite.
Well, actually, funny story. Speaking of coffee real fast, someone literally was telling me that from Seattle that they like Passenger, which is a local coffee place. It's talking about like small coffee, like starting to spread. But back to beer, and Will, I want to ask you this question.
Yes.
What, like, because my concept of like Hollywood is that it's not really popping beer. It's like popping like champagne and other like beverages. So like what was craft beer like in Hollywood?
Well,
point.
So when I was there, gastropubs were kind of, like the big thing out there.
Okay.
So there was a lot of that going on, and there were craft beers, believe it or not. Unless you see what you see on TV, some of it is real and some of it isn't. So, for example, Big Wang's is the name of my favorite wing spot. It looks like a hole in the wall. Pool table, craft beer, but like pool table, dart room, no cover charge. So, we do have that out there.
All right.
But the hole in the walls there don't really look like your traditional hole in the wall either. It's hole in the wall for Hollywood, if that makes sense.
Little glitzier. Than,
a little bit.
Than the hole in the wall over on Walnut Street here in Lancaster.
Right.
little more pizzazz. No Johnny Depp's hopping out of the limo over here. You know what I mean?
Right.
No, it's really. It's really fascinating how there was a time when beer was such a commodity that it was just the cheaper the better. So you could get a deal. You get a $2 bottle or $1.50 bottle or whatever. But then it just became to where people were willing to spend a whole lot of money on a glass of beer, and the craft beer movement really, well, sorry guys, we kicked the keg on topic number 1 of this episode's 5x5. It's time to move on to topic number 2, which is first solo trip. Now, I'm assuming this isn't an acid reference. I'm assuming this is more of a vacation reference, but we could talk about that as well if you'd like to.
Never. First solo trip. I feel like you two are going to put me on the spot, since it probably happened for me like sooner in my life than possibly for you two. I assume you might have been traveling solo long before me.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
do you have one here, Diggs? I mean, you're ready to jump out?
I think it was 2014 spring break. So for context, I went to Franklin and Marshall, just up the road, but I took about 14 months off for bereavement leave, so I was home for all of 2013 and the last 2 months of 2012. So when I came back to finish my degree, I had some money saved up and was like, I'm gonna just go on a trip and just by myself and let's just see what I can see. So I ended up in London, or being based in London with like a hop over to Brussels, and then went back to London, and then like it was just like I was gone for like 8 days, and it was just like I had the time of my life, just like running around the countryside, figuring out how to drive on the wrong side of the road was fun. Or the other side of the road. I shouldn't say wrong.
That's right. That's right. Now, for our British brethren out there, let's clarify that.
For the
you really know
colleague that listens.
You really know how to knock it out of the park, Diggs. You know, I would think of a solo trip like heading down to like Ocean City or something, and you're like, yeah, I went to London, you know, Brussels.
Oh.
I'm like,
sorry. Well, I didn't. Well, that's not really. I mean, I guess those. But you've traveled abroad, but just not on your own. Is that what you're getting at?
Not on my own, and very minimally. I mean, if you consider Toronto abroad, then yeah, I'm all over it. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah. I don't know.
They say a boot, and they have loonies and toonies. Of course, that's abroad.
Will, how about you? What's the first solo trip you've taken?
First solo trip, I was 18 years old, and I drove to Florida from New Jersey for a baseball tryout.
Oh, wow.
Oh!
I used to play baseball. I told you, like, my story is so long. I've done a lot in my 46 years, I guess, but I went for a baseball tryout. I used to play center field back when I looked like an athlete and not the way I do now. So, and I got cut, obviously, because, I'm here instead of retired somewhere.
That's right, because you're not living, you're not, hanging out in the Bahamas in your mansion, in your second house.
Right.
So you went to a baseball tryout. What team were you trying out for?
I was trying out for the Phillies. I drove down to Tampa.
Okay.
And even though they play in Clearwater, the spring training, so we had a tryout in Tampa. So I was there for 6 days, made the first 2 cuts.
Nice.
And then that was the end of the road. They said, yeah, well,
yeah, but hey,
players.
I mean, that's like what, like episode 4 of The Voice or something. I mean, you've made it through some hurdles. I mean, I don't know how the baseball thing works, but
well, there's a lot of, like, if you get drafted, there's over 100 rounds. It's not like football or anything, or basketball where you only have a certain amount of rounds.
Right.
There's over 100 rounds, so a lot more opportunity to get drafted, but I still missed the mark on that.
Gotcha. So you just went to do the tryout and made it through a few rounds. Did you ever play minor league or anything like that, or was that pretty much it?
That was pretty much it. I did play some college ball, and that's it.
Okay. Hey, that's a heck of a trip though for an 18-year-old, right?
It was.
You had to be like, nervous, I would assume, like, driving all the way to Florida. I
just learned how to drive stick too, so my like the car that I had, I stalled quite a bit getting down there.
Did you deadhead it straight through, or did you stop somewhere along the way?
I stopped. I stopped at a couple of road stops. I didn't sleep or anything, just kind of like rested and gave the car and the clutch a break.
Yeah, right. I guess mine would have been so I got out of college in 93. I was 21, and I moved down to Florida. My folks, my grandparents had a place down there that I just went down just to do something, just to move away and kind of feel it out, see what I was going to do. And I ended up going to Nashville, Tennessee shortly thereafter, like maybe 2 months later, made some connections, and a friend of my brother's had a place up there, and I made a contact with him, and he said, yeah, come on up and check it out. So I guess my first solo trip would have been, I think my dad and I convoyed down to Florida, but then going from Florida up to Nashville would have been the first solo trip. And, nice. Knocking on this guy's door and being like, hey, I'm the guy who called you. You mind if I come in? You mind if I sleep on your couch? We ended up becoming really good friends. He was a great guy. He had an extra room, and he said, yeah, you know what? I could stand some help with rent if you want to just rent the second bedroom for a couple of months till you get on your feet. And I ended up moving up there and stayed there for 6 years. But I liked it. I liked.
It's definitely on my list of places.
Nashville,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good town. It's a fun town. It evolves. It's so different than it was 25 years ago. But I've been back a few times. But I liked it. I would then drive back to Florida, and I just enjoyed kind of that being on my own and cruising. But unfortunately, the tank has run dry for topic number 2 of this episode's 5x5. It's time to move on to topic number 3, which is Botanical Gardens. Botanical Gardens.
Not botanical, just botanical.
Botanical. You know, the second time I said that, I thought, I think I'm mispronouncing this word. It actually went through. I'm not even kidding you. It actually went through my head. I was like, I think I'm mispronouncing.
I don't think it matters really.
Botanical.
I just had to, poke fun. That's
Of course. Of course. Botanical Gardens.
Ooh, I like that. So pro, if we can go back to pro versus con.
Yeah, you're for Botanical Gardens.
I am for Botanical Gardens. The Brooklyn Botanical Garden. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York. If you're new to the program, we haven't discussed that yet. But I spent a lot of time there growing up. And in addition to Prospect Park, but obviously Prospect Park is not a garden. Certainly doesn't look like one. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a special place to me. Not just that one. I pretty much love them all, but I was also in a gardening program for a little bit. I think I was like 8 or 9 and was able to like create a salad for our like family dinner one day from like the stuff I grew in the garden, a little like children's garden plot that I had. It was a very a proud moment. But yeah, no, I love the concept. I love visiting them when I can. I'm kind of bad at it now as well, not traveling much these days, but yeah, definitely pro.
Yeah, that's cool. According to our research department, botanical gardens are, well, I had it and then I lost it. I was reading the thing. If you're listening to this program and not seeing it, it said something else and then it just went away.
That's okay.
Derek, thank you very much for bringing that back to our executive producer, our crack executive producer, Ann Kirby. Thank you. A collection of living plants designed chiefly to illustrate relationships within plant groups. So these sound very intentional. I don't even know. Have I been to Botanical Gardens? I don't know if I've been to.
I don't think I have.
Well, you're from Jersey. Isn't that the Garden State?
It is. Believe it or not, there's quite a few cow fields over there, though. I didn't really see a whole lot of
Botanical Gardens. So it's like Longwood Gardens, like a botanical garden. Is that
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't been, but I know it is because I did some research on it. I guess the big sort of thing is especially like you would like a botanical garden. I guess couldn't be complete if there wasn't like a greenhouse situation where you could get like tropical plants that are growing out of their like comfort zone climate.
I don't know if the plants are the therapists who help the plants kind of work their way through this change of climate.
I guess I don't know. Comfort zone. You have to set. You have to like it's like the climate zone in your car. Otherwise, it's not. They're not going to grow properly.
Absolutely.
I've seen quite a few greenhouses in my day, but those plants look a little different.
I gotcha. Well, Longwood Gardens is, according to our research department, the best botanical garden in the United States. Who's making that judgment call?
Yeah, is that empirical? I'm wondering if
I feel like that's a very unscientific statement that someone
right.
That we've just been forced. Jason is just forced to read. So now we're going to get hate mail from every other botanical garden in the world.
I think in this area, Longwood Gardens, if you're not from this area, is about 90-minute drive toward the Pennsylvania, Delaware. Oh, we get more information on that. Check that out and then report back.
It is empirical apparently. So that.
Longwood Gardens, a top 3 or a top 5 on that list, or they just gave you the one?
See that Longwood won a contest by USA Today and 10best.com, topping a list of 20 gardens in the country.
20,
cool.
20 botanical gardens from across the U.S. So I guess it came in number 1. I don't know if if you didn't make the cut. I guess this was sort of like the final round of the playoffs. The 20, they got it down to 20. And then threw it out there to the USA Today. And
how many are now? I want to know how many there are.
There's got to be a ton of them.
Yeah, and I
do think that isn't the Garden State a reference to all of the sort of curated I'll dare I say botanical gardens in the state.
I mean that's what I thought, but
there are 1,775 botanical gardens in 148 countries around the world. It's a lot, Diggs.
Wow.
For Longwood being number 1 in the U.S.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't,
to visit to even get that list.
oh, absolutely. Like who went around, right? Who's mapping? I guess Google probably mapping that. But Longwood Gardens is about a 90-minute drive from here, and it's near the Pennsylvania-Delaware border, and it's just a huge attraction in this area. Just a map. They do some fantastic things with like holiday shows and lighting and all kinds of. It's a very, what do they call it, manicured garden, if you will. I haven't been to it. I'm just talking about it. You know what I mean? But
well, I'm having trouble figuring out the Garden State for Jersey thing, because it seems like it's just like it. So this is from the official. Well, we'll put it in the show notes.
yeah, because it's time to head out of Jersey or head out of topic number 3, and on to topic number 4 of this episode's 5x5, which is the evolution of earphones. Okay.
Who suggested this?
Well, I did, Diggs.
So how about those ones with the sponge when you had it to your Walkman?
That's right. That's
the first one I had.
We were watching Halston, which is the Netflix biopics miniseries, whatever they call them now. Everything Netflix does is now like a miniseries, right? All these biopics. And we were watching it about Halston, and so it was back in the 80s. And they had the Walkman. They had the Walkman, like the wire, the thin metal, right? And then the big spongy, which at the time, and Will, you can probably corroborate this, was sleek compared to the cans.
Right. That, I mean, if you had those and that, $9.99 Walkman, you were set.
Oh,
or even the CD player, the one with the CD player instead.
With
That's
the
upscale.
Yeah, well, if you got the anti-skip.
Right.
Because that first round of Discmans was like every step you took was a
Oh,
it's like remixing every song.
Got it. Yes.
Well, so when I was a kid back in the 70s, right, you had cans, right? You had the big headphones, and with the squiggly wire over to the big stereo, and that was it. And then the Walkman happens, and you've got and that's what I mean, Diggs, like by it being like this really slick design, like this really because they were smaller.
Wasn't it literally just like almost like a spring situation? Not a spring, but
yeah.
Because I feel like I vaguely remember that, like the tail end of that as a kid. But
yeah, they were around for a long time, right? I mean,
yeah,
that headphone design was probably a good 80s and up through the late 90s. You would still go to the store and could get those.
Right. Yeah, because I graduated high school in '92, and I still had that. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What I would do in school is I would pop off. You could pop them off. They were like a little plastic ball, which is what would connect them, because they swiveled, so that they would fit comfortably. Right. And you could pop them off the wire, and if you wore a denim jacket like I did with my heavy metal band patches, you could run the little earphone up your sleeve and into the palm of your hand, right? And in class, I would sit like this and reach into my inside pocket and press play on Metallica's Ride the Lightning. And I would just sit there and just be like, yeah, I'm all about this history. I'm all about it. And then the teacher would call on me to come up to the board, and I'd be like, yeah. So I'd have to do this magic trick where I would like that. And then put my arm down and be like, yeah, and just hold it in my hand. But
so wait a second. Were your teachers deaf? Like, or were you just also very quick at like playing pause,
they were
hitting pause?
It was different back then. It was like smoking cigarettes. Nobody knew you smoked, even though you can smell cigarettes 3 miles away.
Right.
But back then you'd smoke a cigarette and you'd walk into your house and your parents wouldn't even notice, because it was different back then. It's almost like they didn't even extrapolate that you would do such a thing, so it just didn't matter. Will, when did you go to the in-ear? When was your in-ear transition?
Oh, wow.
Like the earbud, right? Because there were earbuds that were out before there were earbuds.
Probably 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Were you still doing the Walkmans in 2010?
Whatever was on sale basically is what I got. So
Yeah.
sometimes, I had the sponge or,
Oh, I was totally
sometimes
that
I
guy.
had I didn't even really go wireless until so much later in life.
Oh, and
I'm like a Johnny come late lately.
I'm not even. I hate them. I hate the wireless Bluetooth thing. You don't even. That's a whole other. I'm going to do a whole show on Bluetooth. The 5 reasons I hate Bluetooth. Anyway, do you remember the? Do you remember the?
It's just 5 now.
I'm gonna.
Sorry.
It's 5 by 5. It's the fastest 25 minutes of podcasting things. I can't do my full list. Do you guys remember the in-ears that had the sponge?
I've never had them, but yes, I do.
So this is the evolution of earphones. So before there was the hard and the rubber kind, right? Like the hard Apple kind or the rubber kind.
Like the silicon I've got.
Yeah, they kind of like you pull up your ear and kind of. There were these. Yes, before there were those, there were little in-ear earphones that that were wrapped in a little sponge like this kind of material, and it would hold them in place. And those worked the best for me, but you would almost immediately go buy a pack of extra ones because you would take them out and the little sponge thing would fly off.
Either that or a little piece of wax.
The wax
attached to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it would be like caked. You'd be like all caked in there. So you'd be like, I'm gonna just. It's not like you washed them,
Right?
You weren't throwing those in the wash with your socks. You know what I mean?
And back then, you're passing around with your buddies, like, "Hey, check this out.
Hey,
check that out.
Yeah, check.
It's a community wax program."
Well, we've turned the volume down on topic number 4. It's time to head into topic number 5, the 5th topic on this episode's 5 by 5, which is football.
Really?
Community wax program. I'm sorry. Ooh, football.
Football.
Which one?
It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, Diggs. It's up to you. This is your show.
What?
How's it spelled? That's the key.
It is spelled foot like American.
Okay.
It's not food. It's not football.
Or foosball?
Football.
I could.
You don't like football, do you?
I'm not con though. I'm like, I don't know. It's okay. I didn't really. I truly didn't appreciate it until I worked on the sideline at FNM. I was a student manager in the equipment room for 2.5, 3 years. So once I was like on the sideline, like every other game, and for most practices, and actually like saw the team component of football, I was very like, football's dumb. People just getting concussions. This is stupid. Like, but I mean, kids were still getting concussions, even because it's just the nature of the game. But no, I grew to respect football a lot being on that sideline. And I have to say, I have to credit the head coach and some of the other coaches too, but the head coach at FNM, his name's John Troxel. He's just, it might help that he's a teacher by trade. So he really like approaches coaching as a teacher.
Yeah.
But watching him sort of mold some of those guys who, some of them were kind of, like meatheads, but they really became like men because of him. That's why
I got it. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think Will's an Eagles fan.
I am an Eagles fan. What gave it away, the hat or the mask?
Both. Definitely the mask. Tried and true, right? Born and raised. Are you South Jersey guy?
Funny, I grew up in South Jersey, but I ended up moving in with my sister, North Jersey. So I was like the only Philly fan in North Jersey.
Right.
What are you doing? What were you doing? What?
A lot of Giants.
That's more happy hour stuff.
That's fair.
So you grew up with the Eagles, I would assume.
Yes.
Right? Like just what? Yeah. I'm from Western Pennsylvania, so I'm a Steeler fan. It's like what you kind of grow up with it. You kind of it gets embedded in you, and you just.
I don't have a problem with the Steelers at all.
No, and I've never had a problem with the Eagles. I mean, some people do this. It's just it's a different. Oh, look at Diggs. He's just it's
you said like Cowboys or something crazy like that.
Well, that's
walk off the show.
That's it. It's the whole. It's the whole. It doesn't matter where you are in proximity or the whole state thing. Like it doesn't matter. Like I'm all about the Eagles when if I'm looking at the NFC, right? If the game's on, it's like I just want to watch a football game, and whatever the Steelers aren't playing, so you just go put the Eagles game on for the Eagles. I'm all about it,
Right.
If you say it's like you with the Cowboys, it's like the Ravens. Like I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like no respect for the Ravens. I don't.
Now, do either of you guys play fantasy football? That's actually what got me watching football again.
Is that right? So, did you just take a break? You just kind of got disinterested in I would assume in the 90s, right? Because then the fantasy thing really kicked off in the late 90s, right?
Yes, but I only started playing fantasy in the last 5 years. So
is that right?
Really gave up. I would watch football if it was on.
Yeah.
But I didn't go out of my way like I used to. And then I started playing fantasy football, and I'm addicted, and I'm playing 7 leagues every year now. So there's that.
So was it the stats component, or was it like you wanted to see if your people won, or like?
I was more of a let's win this money type thing.
Yeah.
Because it's anywhere from $100 to $200 entry, per league. So.
Right,
Yeah,
and the payouts get pretty significant when you're putting in $100 at the beginning or $200. Yeah.
Yeah.
Diggs, you ever play fantasy? Probably not because you don't like football.
But actually, no, I did do fantasy football for someone. I forget, someone in college. Sort of like, I feel like it was an accident, but they signed me up for a fantasy football thing, and I do remember paying attention for a little bit. There was no money involved. It was just
for fun.
Let's have a fun. Yeah, so I was like, I'll play along. I think I ended up doing pretty well, kind of just randomly. I know that name.
Right.
Yeah. It was I mean, that was pretty much all I did. Was just that name sounds familiar. I'll take that guy. And
right. Yeah. You can really just sort of, you can still kind of have fun and do it without knowing a whole. I did it from 2000 to 2004, around that time when it first started. My brother started a league, and I had kind of not really paid attention to football through the 80s, and then kind of got back into it when the Steelers started doing well again, and in the 90s. And in Nashville, there were a lot of Steeler bars, a lot of transplant bars, and so we would go watch the games, and it was kind of fun to talk to people from kind of back home. And but I started playing fantasy. I did it for 4 or 5 years, and I tell you, it just got to the point where I just didn't have the capacity. I was like, I'm watching 5 games a week. I'm watching the Sunday game, the Thursday game. If there was a Thursday game, a Monday night game, I'm watching 2 games. I was just like, I got to just cut this out. I got to stop. And I would just watch all kinds of football. And so I bailed on it, and just said, you know what? If my team's on, if I feel like watching a game, I'll watch a game. So I'm not I'm not ruining my week isn't ruined.
Right.
If Roethlisberger throws a few interceptions, my week is. But I do enjoy it. Unfortunately, gentlemen, the clock has run out on this episode.
Where was our 2-minute warning?
Well played.
Very well played. That's it. Fastest 25 minutes in podcasting. Will, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really glad you're a Candy Factory member. Thanks for joining our community. Diggs, my friend, the pleasure is always mine to hang out with you on 5x5. And for everybody who has tuned in, whether you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube or listening on one of your favorite podcast aggregators, we really appreciate it. We thank you for checking it out. And we will catch you next time on 5x5. The Candy Factory 5x5 podcast
Is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. 5x5 video can be found on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Subscribe to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts.
The Candy Factory 5x5 podcast is recorded at the studios of the Candy Factory,
a co-working campus in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
The show is produced and hosted by Jason Mundock,
along with co-host Robert Diggs.
Editing and additional production by Anna Tran.
The opinions and views expressed on this podcast
are solely those of the expressor.
The Candy Factory is not in any way responsible if anyone said something stupid.
Our theme music was composed
and recorded by a really cool guy.
Really cool guy.
A really cool guy.
Really cool guy named John Chin.
Relevant links and show notes
can be found on the show post
at our website, candyfactorycollective.com.
Maybe that's it.
Is that it? Okay.
Candy Factory
Collective.